Welcome back to Sport on 7. I'm Tom Bushell. You can get me on Twitter. It's at Tom Bushell UAE. Chris McHardy is the online editor for Sport 360 newspaper. And with so much going on in recent weeks, I spoke to him this week about all the top sports stories in the UAE. So much sport has happened over the last couple of weeks, of course. Last week, Sport on 7 was, of course, in Galway for the end of the Volvo Ocean Race, and we did miss some of the big stories. One of those big stories was, of course, Diego Maradona leaving his role at Al Wasl Football Club. Now, Chris McHardy from Sport 360 newspaper is here with me to go through some of the big stories over the last couple of weeks, and there's none really bigger than Maradona leaving, is there?
No, as you say, Tom, Diego Maradona, his one-year sojourn in the UAE came to an end, an abrupt end, it must be said. Obviously, you know, with Diego, he'd been here, a huge name in the UAE football, and a massive miss. You know, he's now left, he's back in Argentina, and Bruno Metsu, his replacement, he's came in, the Frenchman, of course, who is well known to people in the UAE, of course, led Alain to the 2003 AFC Champions League, and then, of course, he did lead UAE to the Gulf Cup in 2007.
You say Maradona is a huge miss, and obviously for the headlines, you know, in terms of the headlines, he is a huge miss. But for the league and for the Pro League, it could actually be a good thing because the results weren't great under Maradona.
No, as you rightly said, they weren't. I mean, at Wasl, they finished 8th in the league in the end. They had a disappointing end as well, the GCC Champions League. They lost in the final after a leading 3-1 from the first leg. But Diego Maradona, he is a name, and the exposure he brought to the UAE Pro League was something that, you know, really can't be defined. And Bruno Metsu is another big name in his own right. As I say, he's had wonderful success, not only in the UAE, but throughout the Gulf. And I'm sure he will bring the fans to Wasl, and of course, as you rightly point out, results are all that matter, and Bruno Metsu, with the pedigree that he has, I'm sure he will have Al Wasl playing better football next season.
It's an interesting topic, isn't it, talking about the big names that come to the UAE. Michael Owen's another one. If he came to Al Shabab, yes, it's a big name, but what would he really bring to the league? Because he really isn't playing that much, does he? Injuries would be a problem. You'd want someone like Asamoah Gyan here who can actually perform at the highest level. That's what the league needs.
Well, interestingly, you're saying that as well. Alain this week, Michel Bastos, the Brazilian midfielder at Lyon. There's talk of an €8 million move that he will move to the UAE. And as well, today, I broke the story this morning that Park Chu-young, the Arsenal striker, the South Korean, Alain also in talks with him as well. So, as you rightly point out, it's important to get the big names, but names that can have an impact. And certainly with Gyan, as you rightly mentioned, with Chu-young, and with Michel Bastos, you feel that Alain next season really will kick on.
Absolutely, and of course defending champions, so they're looking strong for next year. Let's move on to national football, and of course the Olympics are happening in London. That gets underway this week. Team GB played their friendly against Brazil. Brazil were a dominant force, weren't they? But for the UAE team, they might think they've got a chance against Team GB.
Well, having watched the defending of Team GB last night, I'm sure the likes of Adil Khalil and, you know, Ismail Matar will be having a field day, because Mika Richards at centre half, of course, he normally plays right back for Manchester City. He looked woefully short in the centre there last night. But Brazil, very much the team to watch. I mean, when you can leave players like Alexandre Pato, Lucas Moura, Ganzo on the bench, it really does show the depth. And I know a lot of people have talked about Spain. They've dominated all ages, all age groups over the last few years. But this Brazilian side, of course, managed by Mano Menezes, the head coach of the Brazil full team, they very much look the team to beat. But UAE, very much, as I say, they go into Thursday's opener against Uruguay at Old Trafford. They came off a wonderful win yesterday against New Zealand in their final warm-up game, a 4-2 win. And really with the names, likes of Hamdan El Khamali, who's been at Lyon over the past 6 months. OK, he's not started, but he's been getting the experience there. Really look for UAE to be one to a dark horse in that Group A.
And, I mean, Madi Ali, of course, the coach for the UAE under-23 Olympic side. Are we tipping him to get the full-time coach once the Olympics are over?
Well, very interesting as well. This week, a source at the UEFA had said that once the Olympics are over, they will weigh up everything. And to be honest, it would be mad not to appoint Madi Ali. He knows all the players. They have a raft of young players, and obviously showing that being in the Olympics, they've clearly got quality. And going forward, not only for 2014 World Cup and beyond, obviously the disappointment of missing out on that, but very much for the coming years, Madi Ali has to be the man for the job, and I'm sure the UEFA will do that.
Not Maradona.
No. Again, you know, Diego Maradona, his results haven't been the greatest, but for me, it has to be Madi Ali. He's showed over the last few years and with the youth teams that, you know, he's done his apprentice, if you will, and I think he is the right man to lead you in the future.
All right, there we go. They are the big stories over the last couple of weeks here in the UAE. Chris McHardy from Sport 360, thank you so much. We're here at Dubai Sports World where there's a whole host of activities going on. So if you can do it, it's on until August the 31st. Get down here and try out any of the sports that are on offer here. Let's catch up on all the big results of the weekend then. Let's start with golf and, of course, confirmation that Ernie Els clinched his second Open title after long-time leader Adam Scott spectacularly imploded at Royal Lytham and St Anne's. The 42-year-old South African birdied the 18th hole to end 7 under as Australia's Scott bogeyed the last 4 holes to come second by 1 shot. Els, who began the day 6 shots adrift, clinched his 4th major title and first since winning the 2002 Open at Muirfield. The 94 and 97 US Open champion carded 68 to the 75 of Scott, who had led since the 6th hole on Saturday. The 32-year-old Scott was 4 shots clear on the 15th tee and needed to hole from 10 feet on the last to force a playoff. Formula 1 now, and Ferrari's Fernando Alonso beat Red Bull's Sebastian Vettel and McLaren's Jenson Button in a close fight to win the German Grand Prix. The Spaniard became the only man to win 3 times so far this season. He drove a controlled race and stayed just far enough ahead of his pursuers to maintain the lead. Button climbed up from 6th on the grid to pass Vettel at the second pit stop, but was then repassed with 2 laps to go. However, the Englishman was promoted to second place after race stewards gave Vettel a 20-second penalty for his overtake on Button on the penultimate lap. So this is how the World Championship stands so far. Fernando Alonso extending his lead at the top with 154 points. Mark Webber second with 120. The other Red Bull of Sebastian Vettel on 110. And of course, the Tour de France, Bradley Wiggins became the first ever British rider to win the event as Mark Cavendish claimed his 4th consecutive final stage victory. Wiggins, who's 32, finished in Paris with a margin of 3 minutes and 21 seconds. The Londoners' Team Sky teammate Chris Froome consolidated his second place, and it was the Briton Cavendish's 23rd stage win on the Tour. There we go, that's it for this week's Sport on 7. Next week, London 2012 will be underway, and we'll have all the week's big stories for you. As always, have a great week. Goodbye.